This is Centered, where faith meets everyday life. Our hope is to invite you into a better story, a story where you're made new through Jesus, living with God-given purpose, and experiencing peace, joy, and freedom. Together, we'll explore what it means to keep Jesus at the center of where we live, work, and play, bringing beauty, meaning, and renewal to every part of our lives. Thank you for joining us. Here are your hosts, David and Ben.
Hello, and welcome to the Centered Podcast. I'm channeling David, who I don't know what he was doing a minute ago.
I've been watching a lot
check.
of WWE wrestling.
Oh, Sunday.
Yeah, I was trying to announce, man, be an announcer.
It was impressive.
Good, yeah.
I didn't know what to do with it.
If this whole pastoring gig doesn't work out, I got a backup. Yeah,
for WWE.
WWE announcing.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Not wrestling.
Not wrestling.
I think that would be way more entertaining.
El Rey David!
Wow. And poor Tina, she's just in the crossfire of our nonsense, which is probably, we could call that. Name the podcast the crossfire of our nonsense.
This isn't her first being in the crossfire of nonsense rodeo.
No, I'm good with nonsense rodeo.
Yeah. Well, okay. I am Ben. As usual, joined by David, but unusually, pleasantly joined by the great Tina Ferry.
Hi, guys. Nice to be with you today.
I love it.
She's catching
on.
Wow. I don't even know what to do. Now I feel self-conscious about my real voice.
Yeah.
I'm going to try using it. We'll see how it goes. Normal.
Yes, calm.
Normal, as my mother would say, inside voice.
Inside voice.
Inside. I don't think I had much of one growing up. So, here we go. Hey, this is not just the crossfire of nonsense. It is the intersection of faith and the everyday stuff of life. And we're so glad that you're with us. We're so glad that you're with us, Tina.
I'm
Welcome.
happy to be here.
Oh, that was a lot of happies.
Yeah, I'm
She's
feeling
really
happy.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Man, we had a great Sunday.
It was amazing.
It was I don't know. It's funny because it's like we talk about this. For us, the goal is not perfection. Like, it was not a perfect Sunday. Like, there were some little clunky things that happened here and there, and that's just part of, life. But it was a beautiful Sunday.
Yeah, it was absolutely
really
beautiful. And I just want to publicly affirm Tina's amazing teaching gift. Thank you for sharing it with us. And we are, I don't know, a lot of our listeners might not know, we started a preaching cohort. So we got a group of people that meet once a month, and we talk about like the point of preaching, the goal of preaching, how do we get better at it? What's Mosaic's philosophy on preaching, and how do we want to approach it here? And Tina's a part of that, and she is an amazing contributor to that whole thing.
It's fun to be a part of that and bounce off of each other and really ponder. It's a unique opportunity that I enjoy very much.
Same.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing your gift with us.
Yeah. Thanks for opening that space.
Yes. It was really, it was just a really great reframing of a story we all know. We've all heard many, many times. And I thought it was really, I don't know. It just, it took me to a different place.
Yeah, for sure.
Than I expected, and which is, when you've been around the block, when you've been in church your whole life, that's not the easiest thing to do. But you did what was really cool about it is you didn't do it for the sake of doing it.
Right.
It's not like I want to be creative for the sake of being created. I want to be creative for the sake of helping people see something beautiful in this text that they've maybe never seen before.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun to dig into it. I mean, I've studied it many times, especially over the last 5 years. I think a lot of people have been talking about that text and kind of unpacking some of the things that we didn't reflect on. And so, like I said yesterday, I was like, I have a lot to say. So I'm glad that we're here today again.
That's what this is for.
There's a lot to say about that gal and the way Jesus interacted with her.
Well, and if we didn't have a podcast, we'd have 2-hour sermons. So
Not
talking
just
about
from
normally.
me.
No.
Not just from me.
Not just for me.
Tina went long.
I'm in it to win it.
Yeah,
I'm in it to
We
win
let
it.
her. We let her go. She was going, and I was like,
Yeah.
we got to.
Although she did blame me for being a culture setter. I did set the culture.
What you established a pathway, and I just walked on it.
She's like, hello.
It was great.
I just
It was
walked
great.
on it.
I wouldn't even have known that you were going long if you didn't say something, because it was so engaging and interesting. And I remember I was like thinking, I was going through the Rolodex of my past sermons. You know how many times I preached that passage? I'm like, did I say that? Did I do something? Did I mishandle that?
I've done that.
And I was just
Same
like,
thing.
oh man. But it's beautiful that I think it's beautiful to allow the truth of Scripture to grow.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not like we're ever going to nail something perfectly
Correct.
the first time we engage in it. And
Correct.
so to allow that passage of Scripture to grow in beauty and meaning.
Yeah.
And one thing that you did so well, which I was so proud of you for doing this, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I was just like, the way that you brought out the character and nature of Christ was absolutely breathtaking. Like, it actually had very little to do with the Samaritan woman.
Yeah.
And like what was illuminated was the magnitude of Christ's compassion and kindness and like desire for us to bear the image of God fully, you know, as humans. You know what I mean? And it was like not woman, man. It was just Christ was everything in that passage. So great job on
Thank
that.
you.
Like that's obviously where Jesus-centered community, that's a goal of ours, is to illuminate Christ. And you did that masterfully.
Thank you. Yeah. In my life, an understanding of who Christ is and what he's done for me, I just feel like that's so foundational for how I move and breathe. And so if we can't sit in that and really like digest it, we're kind of walking blind and we're just moving through the world, you know, trying things on, but there's not that firm foundation. And so, and I just love him.
Amen.
Yeah.
Like, I just love him.
You know, it's really interesting because I was like, okay, I thought you did three things, and we've literally talked about the three things. I thought you did a brilliant job of reframing the Samaritan woman, revealing the heart of Jesus, and then reimagining how we interact with others.
Yeah.
And so, like, it was just really well done, really thoughtful, and really helpful. And so, with that in mind, it was also not as long as it could have been.
Yeah.
That means there's things on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
So what do you got for us? What didn't make the sermon?
Oh, a lot. I had to skim over the disciples' response to seeing Jesus and the things that they wanted to say to Jesus.
Yeah.
And kind of dig into, you know, that the disciples were followers of Jesus who were very close to him. And their first response was, what the heck is he doing? And how do we correct him?
Yeah. You can't do that.
Yeah. And I think that that's us. Like we do that. We walk with Jesus very closely, and then we step into these situations that are messy or gray or, you know, make us uncomfortable. And our first response is like, don't be associated with that. And I was thinking about that text, and, you know, 1 Thessalonians 5, towards the end, there's sort of this exhortation of like how we should walk. And we pull from that scripture so often of like the appearance of evil, to stay away from the appearance of evil, which is actually King James. And then other translations, New Living, NIV, they go into avoid evil.
Yeah.
They remove the word appearance, but somehow that word appearance has just infiltrated the way we move through this world. And I think that that's what the disciples were triggered. Like, that's what they were responding to, was the appearance. Like, because they know the heart of Jesus.
This looks bad.
Yeah.
This looks bad, but the appearance of evil. And you know, I think about how Jesus engaged people and he was not concerned about appearance.
Yeah.
But we as believers trying to reach for holiness or chase fruit are so concerned about appearance.
Yeah.
And like I've been in Amazon communities where like missionaries arrive on separate Cessnas because they won't fly with one another because they don't want to appear to associate with that other person's theology.
Wow.
I have seen missionaries not fly with shamans because they don't want to be associated with that shaman. And like the first year that we moved to Ecuador, and Chris and I are like, we want to get into the neighborhood. We want to get into the rhythms. That's just how we are. And all of like the disciples of Jesus in the area kept telling us on New Year's not like to lock your door and stay in your house.
Mm-hmm.
New Year's Eve. And we were so curious. But at that point, we were learners. And so we were like, well, we're not going to step out and do something that they say not to. And what we realized was they were all avoiding the appearance of evil, of associating with people that
because it was dangerous.
Not because it was dangerous. They had this tradition
Optics.
where the men dressed as women, and they had this tradition where they would block roads and ask for money to drink. And by first glance, it looked evil.
Yeah.
And something that one wouldn't associate with. But we learned that it was an opportunity for connection.
Yeah.
And so I think we do that. And that like quick response of the disciples of just being like, what is he? They were shocked.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Right.
They were shocked.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes we're shocked, and then that shock drives our behavior instead of pausing and really thinking about like, why am I going to pull away here? What's my motive? And is it image management? Because I don't see that in Jesus.
Yeah, not at all.
So
there's that passage that talks about elders being above reproach.
Mm-hmm.
And we've interpreted that in all kinds of ways that prevent us from actually engaging with people that we are called to love and serve and reach with the good news of Jesus. And
yeah.
Jesus would have been awful at the Billy Graham rules.
Yes.
Oh man, like he would have failed those things.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I think that we all have to consider our weaknesses and the things that cause us to stumble and to not walk into places that are high temptation for us. But I think we utilize these principles that can be good to really do what we want to do, which is stay in places that are self-protective, stay in places that don't ask us to be uncomfortable, stay in places that don't ask us to be comfortable with not having the answer.
Yeah.
And we need to push into those places.
Yeah, I wonder how many things we have in our lives that we associate with like virtue or righteousness that have nothing to do with like virtue or righteousness, like there's no command that God ever gave for Jews to stay away from Samaritans, and not associate them with. And I just wonder what do you think that looks like modern day? Like what do you think is some modern day practices of that in the church?
I mean, I think first it comes with like self-analysis. I think it starts with a willingness to really ask ourselves why we do what we do. And when there is something that we are doing that feels righteous, that we should take the time to pause and ask ourselves, is this righteousness for righteousness' sake? I think the posture of I'm right.
I love being right.
Awful.
If we're willing, when
you're saying it's awful, I'm like, I love it.
I love being right. No, but when we feel so confident,
no.
I think those are the moments that, like, if we're really submitted to the guidance of the Holy Spirit, because in Thessalonians 5, right before, it talks about avoiding evil, or in the King James, the appearance of evil. It talks about being led by the Holy Spirit, not stifling the Spirit. Yeah. And it also talks about being kind and good to one another and to all man.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think we have to ask ourselves when we are like, this is how it's done.
Yeah.
To go, hold on. Is this in some way stifling the work of the Holy Spirit? To really analyze, is this doing good to all? And to be able to kind of filter through that and allow the Holy Spirit to convict and correct.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I think, Jonathan Haidt wrote a book called The Righteous Mind and talks about like the human biology. And we have this thing inside of us that wants to be on the correct side or the right side of conversations. We don't want to be on the wrong side. And it's like a survival instinct that's biological in us. And so
right.
we have
noted, Ben. Noted.
Noted. And what we're actually responding to is not righteousness, it's rightness. And righteousness has everything to do with, it literally means right standing with God and others.
Yeah.
So are you okay with God and others? Like are you in right standing with them? And we've made it somehow like cultural morality or, things like that, as opposed to like, is this really about worshiping God and serving and loving neighbor,
Right. And sometimes serving and loving neighbor, there is discord or a lack of agreement. And that doesn't mean that you're not in right standing with others. Does that make sense? Like, we have to be able to say, like, this is who I am. This is who you are. This is what I believe. This is what you believe. And to still love one another and stay connected. Yeah. And to me, that's about like right standing with others, like that.
Right. Yeah, and we have a really hard time occupying the same space with people that are not like us.
Yes.
And that's like, I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where there is, like, if the gospel really calls us to be a light to the nations, then we have to be with the nations.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
Yeah, I think like the whole righteousness conversation, like as I think about it, we have basically just eliminated that being right with others part of it. And we've made it all about being right with God, not from a heart posture though, from an intellectual agreement with what God says is right or wrong. And so if God says this is wrong, I will disassociate myself from anyone who is not in alignment with that. And like it works itself out in the craziest ways.
Right.
And then we have, like Christian keyboard warriors, right? Who just like rail on the brokenness of humanity. They attack it online or, pretty much online. And
thus the keyboard.
They're not, that's the keyboard.
Not the worship band keyboard. I was thinking at first, I was
Susan
like,
Ajima.
Yeah, I was like the keyboard. No, then it clicked when you were saying.
No, computer keyboard. I just pictured
cue image.
Singing,
thank you very much.
People singing
like
along.
keyboard wars.
Wow. You suck. Oh, no, like we're at that point, like a keyboard warrior. And if you're a keyboard warrior, like I just want you to hear this. Like you're not trying to be in right standing with others. You're trying to force what you believe to be right on others. And like we look at Jesus and how he operated, like that's not how he did it. He didn't force anything on anyone. He invited conversation. He was humble. He allowed people to speak their mind when they were wrong. It doesn't mean he never corrected. It doesn't mean he didn't show them a better way, but like he did it in love, not in this like attacking posture. No.
He didn't do it to be right.
No. He did it to be helpful.
Yeah. And what's funny is his disciples had walked with him, for some period of time at that. I don't know what the timeline is. They're on their way to Jerusalem at that point. I know that. And so like it's got to be a year and a half in. And so it's like Jesus didn't teach them how to respond like that. Like culture did. Right? They all weren't religious. So it wasn't necessarily just like the religious world that taught them that. It's like culture taught them how to view the world in that way. And I think we're shaped by that in so many different ways that we're not even aware. Like we're not even like this. Just it was like reflex to them. Like, oh, we don't do that.
Right.
That's not how we operate. And for them to like, I love for Jesus that Jesus confronts our assumptions about the way things are and are supposed to be. And I have to imagine they walked away scratching their heads for days after that scenario.
Right. Something I didn't touch on top of that was that Jesus was like, oh, yeah, I'm talking to the woman and double down. Let's go hang with them for a couple days.
Yeah.
Right.
Like at the end,
people.
at the end of the passage, he went and spent 2 days with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was beyond this conversation. It was like life on life. And that's why I think, we are so immersed in our culture. And we kind of lose our mind trying to tease out, like, what's culture? It's really about walking in the Spirit. It's really about being.
Yeah.
It's really about knowing God's voice and to be sensitive to his correction. And to surround ourselves with people who are on that same path that will say, like, hey, like, I see this in you, and you say this and you do that, and that people, non-believers, even have permission to do that. Like, are we vulnerable enough where we're going to allow that and welcome that? Because if we're walking in the Spirit, that's why I said, like, I don't want us to strive towards this. I don't want us to bootstrap up. I had a friend actually yesterday that I was like, what'd you think? And they came and visited, and he was like, I just missed the 3-point application of what I'm supposed to do. Oh. And I was like, that was on purpose. That was on purpose because this is a Spirit-led adjustment on a day-to-day basis as we are sanctified and walking and talking with the one who knows.
There's not a formula?
There's no formula.
Dang it.
And that's why it's this slow, messy zigzag. And we don't like that.
Yeah. I love that you did that. And I missed it. I wasn't able to say it on week 1. But the whole point of story-formed discipleship or story-formed theology, viewing God through the lens of story, is that Jesus is more concerned or less concerned about what we think and more concerned about how we think. And I want us to help and train people how to think. I don't want to tell them what to think.
Exactly.
And that's why when people, they want me to say this from the stage or say this more directly from the stage or say this, and it's like, no, that's telling people how to, like, what to think. It's not teaching people how to think for themselves and how to view Jesus as the ultimate lens and through which we view culture in the world around us, like to interpret everything.
And to wrestle.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Well, it's funny.
And to wrestle against cultural assumptions.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
Well, it's funny to me, too, because it's like basically what those people are saying is like, treat us like babies. Treat us like toddlers. Because what do you do with the toddler? You tell them what to do. Because they're not in a cognitive, like they don't have the cognitive ability to learn how to think.
Yeah.
But what am I trying to do with my teenagers? I'm trying to not tell them what to do. I'm trying to tell them how to think about this through the lens of Christ.
Yeah.
And having a worldview that is centered on him. So based on that, what do you think you should do? Like, that's a very different thing. And so when somebody like comes and says, you need to say exactly what people should do, like, that's what I hear. I'm like, you should treat our congregation like toddlers because they don't know how to think for themselves.
I think it's just new.
For sure.
And it is uncomfortable, and it does take time, and it is an imperfect process.
Yeah.
And so that's uncomfortable.
Full circle. The reason why people want to know what to think is they want to know whether they're right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If we just base it down to like what the real is, it's not, there's a reason why, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Like Jesus wants to teach us to be a people that hunger and thirst for him, for the things of him, not just being right or wrong.
Doing it right.
And there is, the human condition is so messy and nuanced, and I love how you brought out the the Samaritan woman's history, and we don't know for sure.
Nope.
We really don't know for sure.
That's why I said probably, possibly.
We know some cultural things. Yeah, we know some cultural things surrounding like her story and what was going on. We know there was a lot of oppressive behavior towards women and divorce and things that were happening. And we know Jesus railed against that, right? And so it wouldn't be surprising if this was another one of those stories where Jesus was elevating the oppressive practices of Jewish culture that infiltrated, the world or whatever that's there. But it's okay that we don't know all the details.
Yes.
It's okay that we can wrestle with these ideas and say, maybe, or what if, or we don't know, or could you just consider, because if I run into you on, like, if there's someone on a street corner that's homeless, I don't know everything about their conditions there.
Right.
And I should be curious about what's really going on in their story instead of all the cultural assumptions that come along with that baggage.
And that's a posture. I mean, our girls living interculturally, we always told them, be curious, not critical.
Yeah.
And I think also, like, be curious, don't compartmentalize. Because we like to do that.
Yeah.
Like, this is who that person is, and this is who that person is, and this is because
put everyone in a box.
Yeah, and curiosity is so connective. And it takes our guard down and it takes their guard down. And I was talking to Chris this morning, my husband, and I was talking about curiosity, and because we were talking about like homelessness and dignity, and how often we don't engage it because being curious and connective leads us to a place where we don't have the answer, which means we aren't right.
Yeah.
Even though you love to be right.
I love being right.
But we're so uncomfortable there. And that's why during the sermon, I felt like I needed to say over and over again that we are all the Samaritan woman.
Yeah.
And that we are not the answer. We are not the answer. And so if we really accept that, digest that, then we can engage people not expecting to have the answer.
Yeah. Right.
And that barrier drops. And then there's only space for connection and to say things like, come and see.
Yeah.
On the curiosity lane, in that lane, I have a curiosity. You said something that I was like, I don't know if I've ever heard that. And maybe
Was I right?
I don't know. I thought this was curious to me.
Yeah.
You had said that you had been told in a couple different circles not to ask questions.
Yes.
I literally tell people all the time, ask more questions, because I'm thinking through the curiosity lens, not the lens of like rightness and like how people might feel about your questions. So, I do encourage people to be thoughtful about the way they ask questions. Like, so I think I have this awareness of what you were talking about clearly, but I've never had someone say to me, don't ask questions. And I'm just curious, like, what
You're about to get real, Ben.
like what does that come from?
I think
Is it gender?
yes.
Yeah. Well, no, but I want to get into that then. If that's
It
what it
is.
let's talk about it.
No, it is. It's and I honestly was not planning to say also in marriage studies.
Well, that's the one that
But
caught my attention.
it just came out when I was up there.
Do not question your husband.
Because it wasn't a communications class that you facilitate conversation in a way that isn't kind of question. I think that there are other philosophies, but the professor spent some time talking about that. As a woman, there are several books that I have read specifically related to marriage and communication in your marriage that they very clearly say, try not to ask questions. And I will not list the titles here, but they exist.
Nobody read those books.
And
is that one of them?
And
I hate that book.
She's still not going to answer you.
I'll throw
They-
it out
Father
there,
Tina.
Tina.
Stick to
They're
your
out there,
guns.
and if you
Yeah.
read a book and it says that, think twice. But what it does is it creates an environment where women are contorting their words for connection. And I saw this with the Samaritan woman and the way the Samaritan woman had been preached about. This, like, she is aggressive, she is pushing, she is, and I said this to Chris. I said, if a man were asking these questions of Jesus, no one would frame her as argumentative. They would immediately frame her as him as a seeker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the reality of being a woman.
Which I love. One of the things that I love about you is that you understand the tension and the dynamic, the power and culture dynamic, especially in the church of that. And you're very respectful of that dynamic. You don't push, but like and one of the things that I agree with you 100% on, but also disagree 100% on, is that for the men in the room, we're not the Samaritan woman.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the same social restrictions and stigma, and there is a power dynamic that is going on there that makes us not her.
Right.
And I want men to understand that too. Like,
Totally.
and I understand the commonality between our brokenness and our need, and like Jesus' love for us. So I totally understand that, but I also want people to walk away and go, yeah, you'll never have to deal with what the Samaritan woman had to deal with because of your gender, because of your economic status, because of the color of your skin, because of whatever is going on there. There is also self-awareness needs to be power dynamics that happen.
And that's where we partner. So I am very careful about how I frame things because I desire to nurture and maintain the unity that we already have in Christ.
Yeah.
And anytime someone is given a platform that they are not typically given, you must be prudent to bring people along.
Totally.
And that's the partnership. I've told Chris, we work with Indigenous people that are highly marginalized.
Yes.
And people do not understand how marginalized they are. Often the shifts of mentality that we've seen occur amongst Latinos and Westerners in the way that they relate to Indigenous, it is not an Indigenous person saying enough publicly.
Yeah.
It is an Indigenous person going to a person of trust and saying, I'm done. And then that person of trust who has voice and status
relays it
and advocates.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by partnership.
Yeah.
Because we want to push, we want to talk about our reality. And I agree with you that men are not the Samaritan woman when it comes to class and gender, all those things at the time. And I was speaking to, before Christ.
Yeah.
Of course. But
no, I don't disagree with the point you made. But I mean, there's that part of me that's like, I want everybody to recognize the power dynamics that exist, not just culturally, but even among us. Like in Littleton, like we have, and it doesn't matter if you're a boss of an employee. It doesn't matter if you're, wealthy in a grocery store to a store clerk. It doesn't, like, there are these power dynamics that exist that people have to experience a type of protection and submission for survival that some people don't have to do.
Yes. And that is why partnership is so important. So as we move away from these things, when we identify this imbalance and this marginalization, there's a partnership in that. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful that we have that.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that we're able to push into these things. I'm thankful that I'm able to stand in front of our church and say, I've read marriage books that tell me not to ask questions of my husband.
Yeah.
To reframe it as a statement that would maybe draw out of him what you kind of sort of want to hear or understand.
Dumbest advice.
And then, guys, on the flip side, women get criticized for being indirect and not asking for what they want. Enjoy that smorgasbord of a good time.
Yeah. If I had a...
All right, I'm done. I got to go home. I got to go home and apologize to Tara right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's complex.
Dang, Tina, why do you do that?
I know. Why aren't we clear?
Yeah.
But we need partnership to be able to move through those things. We have to stand by people, and in this case, women we're talking about, but also, people in our church that are unseen, people in our communities that are unseen. They need advocacy and people of peace that can stand up and say, enough.
Yeah, and it's not just a gender issue; it's a social class issue. It's whether
it's
are you single or married? Are you there's all kinds of stigmas that are attached to positions that we hold.
Yep.
And I do believe in all my heart that a huge part of Jesus's ministry on the earth was to break down the power structures that separate us. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't to take away power. Right. It was to bring awareness to how those power structures could be used for good or for evil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For building up and edifying and protecting and serving the Lord and his mission in the world, or for tearing people down and protecting your own, and selfishness and greed and lust and all those types of things. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
That's the basis of the question, is like, I had a feeling of why,
that
but
was
I also
improv.
know that you didn't, but I also know that because of this partnership, you aren't going to like hammer that point, because you're respectful and you do care about the unity of the church. And yet at the same time, I think we want to create space to have conversations that bring awareness to things that we don't see. Like I understood where the question was coming from, or where that statement was coming from, but I literally have never been told not to ask questions. I've been told the opposite. And so like it's important for, be it men or, the whole white privilege thing is like that. That's a caricature and sometimes of the real issue. Like, and I'm not saying people should feel bad for being in situations where they have had privilege or power or whatever, but we should be aware.
That's the point.
And we should see people, and we should see their struggle. We should see their brokenness. We should see them as created in God's image and worthy of honor and dignity and love. And that to me is like the important part of the conversation.
And it's about creating space. So I said this to David a few weeks ago when I was talking through some of the things that I was thinking to say. And we have seen this so much with Indigenous peoples. We've seen this so much in the racial tension that we've experienced in the U.S. and with women and men in the evangelical circles. But oftentimes people who are marginalized and wounded will speak up, and they'll speak up in a way that is inappropriate and that does not maintain unity.
Yeah.
And the reaction is shut it down, and you're addressing the behavior or the way it was communicated instead of what's behind what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something we can do when we can hold space when people who are feeling unheard, unseen, abused, raise a hand, even if they raise the fist instead of the hand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That we sit in that. And that's what we saw with Jesus. Was that, she was, claiming that well as hers, and she was saying, you Jews, and, he could have been triggered by some of the things she was, or even the way she framed
He might have
things.
been, actually.
He might have been.
In
We don't know.
right?
We don't know. But he was.
Disciples certainly were.
They were.
They were,
and so I think that that's the work. That's the work of reconciliation.
That's so good.
And when I serve with Indigenous people who tell me the truth, and it hurts to hear the truth, what they have experienced, and I internally want to feel defensive, but instead, Chris and I, and by mentors that have taught us, we really seek to pause in those moments where the defense starts to come up, and just to leave space for them and to thank them for their confidence and their trust in our relationship, to even be willing to communicate what their experience is.
Yeah.
And then there are fun places that you get to go from there.
It's huge. That's huge.
Love it. Thank you. I think that was heavy. I think it's time to have a little fun. Let's just lighten the mood a little bit.
Oh,
Time for
I like to stay in the
just
tension.
for funsies.
Just for funsies.
Okay. So Tina, you opened up with a story.
Another light one.
Light story. But David brought it back in the benediction. I was not surprised.
Georgia loved that.
I was surprised.
She brought that up at lunch. She was like, "Did you hear David bring back ransacking to the marriage conference?"
It was crazy. I was not expecting that at all. It was good. Anyways,
I was fascinated by that story, especially actually in the volunteer service when you told that. I could not stop thinking about it. So I'm glad you brought it to the.
Oh my
to
gosh!
the
And there's
service.
so much more to the story. But there's
Yeah. Well, so the point of it though was like you had an expectation. How did you meet your husband? And you thought it was going to be this sweet story, and it was not that. You got way more than you bargained for, and I think we've all been in those situations. But shout out to Megan. She dropped a question for us, and hopefully this is a little less complicated or dark, but maybe not.
It's controversial.
Nice. Okay.
How did you meet your spouse? So let's talk about that.
Oh boy.
Tina's
I get to go first?
Tina's first.
Yeah.
So our story is kind of funny. Our parents, Chris's parents and my parents, went to the same church. Chris and I are 7 years apart.
Okay.
And I was 12 years old the first time I saw Chris, and he was 19.
Whoa.
Back-
This is getting rich.
Yes.
Okay.
Chris is not guilty. This is all me. And I was not boy crazy, nor did I want to get married because I viewed marriage as entrapment. So this is very out of character.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And anyways, I was at church, Christmas, I think it was Christmas. And after the church service, we go up into the fellowship hall, 1980s, 1990s.
Yeah.
And after church, drink coffee and chat. And I look outside and there is a long-haired, earringed man smoking cigarettes. And that was Chris Ferry.
No.
And you just
No.
And
sucked you right in.
I left. I was like, yes,
That's
the
my
man.
guy.
And I was not rebellious either. None of that. Which is
But you
very
loved you a
interesting.
rebel.
Dude,
I
I cannot
guess. I
picture
just-
Chris.
I just love
earrings,
picture it 'cause
long
I've
hair, and
seen
cigarettes.
photos.
double earrings,
Well,
long hair.
I think actually when I first met you guys, Chris still had long
I
hair.
know, and it was so cute. And then he had to get all.
Oh,
He
I
going
wish I
to
knew that.
when we
Chris.
moved to the Amazon, he had long hair, but like these bees that are like they're called sweat bees, kept like getting stuck in his hair when he was in jungle communities. So he came home and cut his hair off because he has beautiful hair. But so I saw him. And one of my best girlfriends, who I'm still friends with today, she always jokes with me. She was like, "Tina, do you remember how you left your backpack behind so your parents would have to go back so you could see him again?"
Whoa.
And I
wow.
told my best friend that I was going to marry him.
At 12
At
years
12?
old. Oh my goodness.
This is
Poor
not what I
Chris.
expected.
That's our story.
Poor
And there
Chris.
is so much more
Is there
to that
such
story.
thing as an adult predator? Is this
Yeah,
like
how-
That's me.
Wow.
Yes. So we
Reverse cougar.
reverse cougar?
There's always been something about Chris,
That's
and I
hilarious.
cannot wait to get to eternity and ask God about what was us and what was him. And,
Yeah.
But we didn't start dating
Okay,
until I was 19.
okay, that's us.
19.
Okay, just
19.
just to
There's
give
a lot of
Chris-
story between 12 and 19.
7 years you had this crush.
Yep. And yes, like hardcore. Every Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving that Chris would come back from school, I would go show up to church early to sit our family in his eye line. Because
And
I
you'd
was like,
smoke a
this is the
cigarette
day.
outside.
Wow.
and you'd wait for him to show up.
This is the day. This is the day that Chris Ferry comes across that fellowship hall and says,
Uh-oh.
"Tina, always been you.
I love how we romanticize things because I'm sure it did not go down like that at all.
It did not. And in another podcast, I'll tell you the rest of the story. But that's how we met.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
wild.
Well,
That's
actually, I'm not
wild.
even sure we met then. That's just when I saw him.
That's
I'm
when you
sure we
saw
didn't
him.
meet until I was like 16 or something.
Never talked to him. Never like.
No.
You just pined away for 7 years.
I was like, how am I going to have a moment with my future husband so that he can realize that this is what's happening?
Chris, he has no idea what happened to him in that 7 years.
No.
The manipulative practices.
Hey, no, it's called drive. Do not twist my journey.
Don't twist the beauty.
That is
intention.
intention and
intentional
drive. Strategy.
I love it. Oh, I love it. That's amazing.
Yep.
Devotion.
7 years. I don't work that way. I'm such a
What's
in the moment, like I cannot even imagine for 7 years.
No.
Doing
It was
that.
cooking.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get in my way.
Awesome.
I'm
Don't-
not messing with Tina.
Yeah.
If she wants something, I'm like, here, just have it.
She will
You're
wait.
going to get it eventually.
She will
Might as well
wait.
give it to you
I'm a
now.
sleeper.
Yeah.
I will hold. No, it was.
Chris was just clueless, like Fabio with his
Yeah.
long flowing
You'll
hair.
have-
He's like,
He was like, how many more times do I have to come back to church? That was where Chris was.
oh,
Yeah, he was a rebel, huh? I did not know
He has a
that.
whole story.
I need to
we
hear
have a
that
whole story.
story.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Mm.
I don't know it.
You're up, David.
Oh, well, Tara's family had a dowry.
Oh, good.
And
Was it good?
Did
it was
you
the largest
ransack her
dowry
village?
of all
You
the
were like,
families
"Most
in my
money."
neighborhood. And so I know. No, ours is pretty simple. I was roasting coffee for a coffee shop in we were in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we joked because Tara was in a season of her life where she was searching for God. She had kind of like plowed through life and came up empty and was just like really searching for like something spiritual. And I was in a season where I was running from God. I was really backslidden. I'm coming off of, a pretty severe drug addiction, and I got a job at this little coffee shop, and I used to roast coffee. And so I'd sit there, and part of the coffee roasting is, I would take all this roasted coffee and I would blend them, and we'd hand mix like all of our coffee. And she would just like come in and watch, me work with the coffee. And
Did you have long flowing locks?
I did have long
I
flowing
thought so.
hair. Yeah.
We need to compare
long
Man,
flowing
so-
hair.
so-
And I did
I
smoke
didn't. I don't know
cigarettes.
how
and
I-
so
I don't know how
I
I
had
scored
cigarettes
Lauren.
in my mouth. Yeah. But I couldn't smoke when I was doing coffee. But I
Quality control.
I literally saw her roommate worked at the coffee shop, and I would tell her roommate, I was like, "Oh, that girl's like, she's gonna be my girlfriend." Like,
See?
and her roommate Kelly was like, "Nope, that's not gonna happen." And
No shot.
so I asked her out one day, and she told me no. And it was like a Wednesday or Thursday night or whatever. And she's like, "No, I actually have a date with someone." So she went on a date. Well, I gave her my number anyways. She called me after that date, and the date was so bad. This dude, and nothing against like I
No,
don't.
you love this guy.
I'm
You're
not trying to
grateful
I'm
him.
not trying to like make fun of anyone, but he had one glass eye. And he kept like taking it out and
No.
wanting to show Tara. This.
No.
And
First
so,
date?
First date, dude. First
No.
date. And so I was like
Oh,
super thankful this guy was not like,
Socially aware?
Socially aware. So I always joke and I say, I won out the dude with the glass eye.
I know what I'm giving Tara for her birthday, a glass eyeball.
So she called me and she's like, "Oh, it's an awful date." And she's like, I was thinking about, going out. And we went out and we went to this little jazz bar called Belo's in downtown Tempe, Arizona. It was this underground jazz bar, super cool. And we were sitting there, and there was a deaf couple that was sitting in front of us, and they were feeling the table for the vibration of the music, and they were like totally like enjoying this moment together. And Tara and I were just like, oh my gosh, this was like magical. So we went out and talked all night. And interestingly enough, she found out that I had been to Central and South America a lot for missions. She kept asking about that. Like, well, what did you do? And what was it like? What do you believe about God and all this? And I was trying to run from God. I didn't want anything to do with him. And she kept bringing him up. And we literally talked about God the whole night on our first date till like 4 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
All right, Ben.
So
there we were.
I'm trying to think through like the best way to share this, but like, so I moved here in 2000, and it was actually this church. I came to help this church. It was The Rock.
Lauren was 12. Ben was 19.
Lauren was 19.
Lauren had long hair.
She did have long hair. It was
Smoked crack.
beautiful. She did not do
Lauren,
that.
did you smoke?
Oh my gosh. She's mortified that you're even considering these things. She's going to listen to this.
I know
she's going to be so offended.
Hi, Lauren. I'm just kidding.
Lauren was the sweetest, innocent person I'd ever met.
Yes, I believe that.
That is the truth when I first met her. And so I was in the worship team. I was playing the bass. So I wasn't the singer. I was just doing my bass thing. And she got a mailer, or her friend got a mailer, and they came to church from the mailer. And so she apparently saw me, and love at first sight, like,
whoa,
from the stage. But she had this curiosity because I had a wedding ring, which I was married. Not happily, not like actually living together. We were separated. It was a hot mess. It was really ugly. And but she was definitely
like
curious about me. Because also she said I looked like 12. Which
I told you.
It's a 1912 situation.
She was the predator, except I was older than her.
Yeah.
No, intentional pursuer.
Yes. And
reframe.
Long story short, I wind up getting divorced. We had some on again, off again. I was pretty broken and pretty messed up. But I think like ultimately what happened is God really drew me to her. She, for some reason, was always drawn to me. She was like, I'm going to marry that man. And I was a jacked up, hot mess. Couldn't figure anything out. Like really terrified of relationships and or at least anything serious. I wanted to be in relationships, but not serious. And one day, God just really revealed to me, like, I have been like trying to like all these other women, and this woman loves me. And I don't know what I'm running from. I don't know why I'm doing this.
You don't?
And
commitment.
So, well, I knew.
I'm sure you're running
but like
from
it was like
commitment,
this, like I think
She
I'm
was
just gonna
safe.
re-engage.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna re-engage, and
I remember all this.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And I didn't have long hair. I did have earrings and like bleach tips and all sorts of things. So she thought I was like this rebellious like Christian guy, and that was somehow super attractive to her. Yeah. So here we are, 20 years later. It only took us, I think, from that Easter she came to church, or I don't think it was on Easter. It was an Easter mailer, but they came later. It was probably 4 years. that we got married.
Not quite 7.
Not quite seven. You win.
But Lauren is a perseverant woman.
She is. And honestly, I've just like, if I had a nickel for every time I wondered, like, why? What would ever, like, I had no redeeming. I was like actually cruel to her in several different ways and in social environments. And yet just what like a beautiful love she had for me. And
that's so true.
So
there's so much mystery there. Chris and I have that same kind of story of just like, man, in the midst of our brokenness, God was weaving something really beautiful and redeeming all along the way. And that draw of like Lauren to you and me to Chris, there's some commonality there of like something supernatural of just like this expression of the Lord who really saw you, and loved you.
She definitely wasn't sitting there going, someday he's going to be a pastor and I'm going to marry him. Like, she wasn't thinking that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for sharing, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Couple questions. Feel free if you got questions to jump in, but let's see. We've kind of touched on this, but I'll ask more directly. So you had said how we've misinterpreted the woman at the well, and people made assumptions that she was immoral, that she was promiscuous, like spiritually obstinate or resistant, and you showed us evidence in the text that actually like drives towards a conclusion that that's not necessarily true of her. Like, why do you think we have historically misread or mislabeled this woman at the well?
What do you think, David?
She's like, I don't want to answer that, David.
From you. I want to hear your perspective.
I mean, I think we just know what we know.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said we don't know people's context until we know people's context,
yeah,
I think that's true. I don't think that she's been misrepresented with ill will or intention.
Malicious intent, yeah.
I think, like what you talked about, David, that, men don't understand really the reality of the Samaritan woman because they're not living those same tensions related to gender and people with different class levels don't understand and, all of that. And I think that that's part of it is just really, just it not being on your radar.
Yeah.
I think even, theologians and, commentaries, a lot of them were just reading through their context. So I think that's why. I also think, we like to impose tone.
Mm-hmm.
That I think it's really tied to our own baggage.
Yeah.
And our own incorrect views of God and other.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just kind of layers on top of the text.
Yeah.
So that's what I think.
It's great. I agree. Yeah, I think I think, and that's one of the things that I wish, we had, like as a church, like discipleship, we do a better job in helping people understand what we bring to the table when it comes to knowing God or anyone else, like we know through our own experience, we know through our own cultural upbringing, we know through our own wounds and hurts, and we know through our own aspirations and desires, like, and what I love about God is he never asks us to transcend culture and ourselves. He always enters into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we learn what we bring to the table better, it'll help us to be more curious and ask better questions about what assumptions we might make, know. And I try to, like, in the way, like I do a discipleship piece and I talk about the isms that we all that influence the way we see scripture. And so whether it's individualism or consumerism or nationalism or secularism, whatever ism we have, we're bringing to it, and it's helping us interpret or make sense of the world. And it's not always right.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just have to be aware of that. Like, we're not always right. Like, the way we see things are not always right. So I just think culture shapes us more than we like to admit. And even when we say yes to Jesus, all that stuff doesn't just magically disappear.
Yeah, it's a process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a process.
Yeah, well, I was thinking too, I was like, I think part of it might be also like, we just love a good story. We love a good, like, compelling transformation. We love the people who have the testimony of, like, I was a drug addict, I was this, I was that. We love David's testimony, basically.
Yeah.
And then you got people like me who are like, yeah, I grew up in church, and like, and we've kind of like, I think people who have a testimony like mine often think my testimony is not good enough or interesting enough or compelling enough to, like, draw someone to Christ. But I think, like, so when we talk about this Samaritan woman, we think, man, it's so much more compelling if she's an adulteress, like, like, just totally far gone in sin. And it's way more compelling than she was a spiritually curious woman who'd lived a hard life, who's probably been widowed multiple times, and she runs into the Messiah and it changes everything. Like that is still, I think, a compelling enough story.
Again, we like another. We like to create an other, somebody who's like the spectacle. And something I didn't say that is another possibility is, I mean, we knew that she had to give a dowry 5 times. And somebody who doesn't have money and is destitute doesn't have 5 dowries. Or doesn't recuperate the dowry if she's, so there was resource there somehow.
Right.
And so I think we've also painted her as like this, like
impoverished,
yeah.
She can't take care of herself.
Yeah. And on the flip side, when she goes back into the community, we know that the testimony of a woman wasn't worth much.
Totally.
Right.
And the people listened to her.
Yeah, the testimony of a woman isn't worth much. How about a poor adulterous woman? What's her testimony worth?
It's almost like she already had an ear.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of, that residue is there. We're not sure if that's the case, but we like the contrast in the black and white, and we like somebody who's like corrected and
Well, and I like the Chosen, like the show, but if you watch how they illustrated her, it's much more in line with the more historical, potentially misrepresented version of her, and she does look like, she's got this man and he's, not her husband. He's kind of a jerk, but she needs him because she's got, and like that could be true.
It could be.
But how did she get to that point?
Right.
And she looks like this impoverished woman, and like, it could be true, or it could be a caricature.
Right.
That makes us feel like it's a really great story.
Yeah. And I think we have to be willing to hold that space and just allow for there to be things that we don't know. And we can still study it and kind of think about it and chew on it.
And be curious about it. And like present other ideas about what really might be going on. Because I think that's really important for us to understand who Jesus is. And what I loved is when you brought in some of the other stories that were more clear about what was going on.
Go and sin
you know
no
what
more.
I mean? Yeah. And I love that because, what if, Jesus had an encounter with a woman of means, the Samaritan woman of means, who, you know what I mean, who's in this situation, and she really is searching and trying to figure things out and has influence. And what if Jesus reached her with the good news and did that strategically because he knew she would have a voice in a community?
Right.
Like, you just,
what if?
What if? Like, you just don't know. Like, there could be, So I love the experimentation with the different possibilities of that text. And,
it's good.
The humanity of it.
Kind of in that vein of, Jesus not telling her go and sin no more. You made this this point that Jesus was more interested in connection than correction, which I thought was really helpful. And then you gave your hiking illustration, and so you're just to reframe in case someone missed it. You're out of water. You're hiking. You come on this encampment of illegal immigrants.
Bum bum bum.
Whoa! Like, what do you do? And you talked about like the tensions of fight or flight, and how do we respond to that? And I thought it was really interesting, the way that I think you brought us into something we could all picture. Like, oh, what would I do there? And I was just thinking about how you kind of contrasted that with how Jesus interacted with this woman, and he engaged her, he asked questions of her, he spent time with her. Like, could you talk a little bit more about that tension, just for us, and what does that look like? And then, man, why is it so important that we embrace connection first, or not even first, but connection over correction?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to being right. But I think,
I love being right.
We're told, do not be surprised when you have trials of many kinds. In this world, you will have trouble. We know that there will be tension. And so, I think it's hard for us to view those as opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's really with that illustration. What I was asking of myself was, when somebody responds to me in a way that internally for me is inflammatory, whether or not they intended it that way, but internally for me is inflammatory, do I really view that as an opportunity for connection? And what really it lit up in me was entitlement. And just this sense of like, who do you think you are? Which means, do you know who I am? That's the flip side of that
Name
question.
dropping, kind of
Who do
vibes.
you think you are is really saying, do you know who I am? Which is this hierarchy.
Yeah.
That we that we just live in, like in our minds and in our hearts. And so, again, like it would be a flag, a signal of like, because in that scenario, the fight would be correcting. The fight would be saying, hello, my trail, my land, my water. Let me correct you.
Welcome to America.
Yeah. Or, or connection. And what does that reveal in me that I would be so quick to correct and feel justified? And, that contrast of the Jews having the high moral ground, and even if we do, what's our goal?
Yeah.
What's our goal? And just the cry of my heart was like, Lord, make that true of me. Make that true of me. Like when something is so inflammatory for me, that I would just take on the heart of Jesus, the reconciliation and connection.
Yeah. No, it's good. I talked to my, probably more my oldest son at this point than my youngest on this, but like we talk a lot about why do we do the things that we do, and are you interested in just like gratifying this desire to whatever, yell at someone, piss them off, whatever weird teenage subversive things they do, but like, are you interested? Is that what you want? Or is there like an outcome that you're interested in, like connection with someone or like growth, or maybe it's just even as simple as like, well, I want to have a working relationship with this teacher, like where we can have like some dialogue or whatever it is, and it's like we get, I don't know, I feel like we just get so fixated on like what our flesh brings out. Like in the moment, it's so powerful that unless we are really sensitive to the Spirit, we like can't resist. Do you know who I am? This is my water. That posture, it is within each of us.
It's in our intestines. It's not, it's in our guts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that, I just thought it was a really powerful illustration you brought us into. And you could, like, we could all see, like, oh, I have that in me. It was a powerful thing. One last, unless you got something you want to hit.
Good.
I want to talk about dignity. You pointed out how Jesus gave the Samaritan woman dignity, which I thought was just a really beautiful thing. And Jesus, man, you see it all throughout the Gospels, how he brings dignity to the marginalized, the sexually broken, those that are physically ill or disabled or whatever, impaired, like women, all of it. And I think, I don't know that you said this, but it's something that just kind of I saw in what you're saying that, before dignity is something we do, it's something that we see. Like we see it in the person in front of us.
Yeah.
And then it's easier to act on it, right? It's not false. It's not like we're not just trying to be like right or a good person or, like you said something today in our lead team meeting that someone sang a song that was like, before you tell someone Jesus loves them, you should love them. And that was like right in line with what I was like getting from Tina as you're sharing this.
Yes.
And so, like, what does it look like to practice seeing people differently in everyday moments? You're at work, you're at home, you're in passing, and like, what does it look like to see dignity and then live it out?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is recognizing that people are more than the worst thing they've done or the worst thing that's been done to them. And I think we have a tendency to make a thing the whole thing in someone's life. And so, Tara and I were just talking about this the other day. Like we have a friend that, not a believer. She's curious that we've been hanging out and like we love this person so much and we keep finding out more and more things that are like shocking about like her and her life and and it's like, and we always leave these interactions being like, oh man, there's so much, I won't drop name, but like there's so much more to this person than we even know or realize or than that looks on the outside. And I just think that's true for everyone in every story, no matter what right judgments you have against them. Like you can have very like good right judgments towards the way they live, what they've done, whatever, but there's more to them than that. And I feel like we live in a culture that doesn't make room for that. And I just, and I don't even know how.
We just make snap judgments, right? Like I see someone and within 2 seconds, I've, in my head, created a narrative for the
They're
person.
categorized.
Yes. Yes.
Or the person did do something awful. Like, and we still like, that's their whole story.
Yep. We dehumanize.
We dehumanize them. We demonize them and we just say that that's them. And so, I just... I think believing in Jesus is believing that redemption is all of our stories and it's possible for everyone. And until you actually believe in the power of redemption, you're always going to reduce people down to their worst or best thing,
Yeah.
That's good.
I think about like a love that always hopes. Not that be our motive for engagement, but in my experience, when I'm with people who terrible things have been done by them or to them, kind of to sit with them with a love that hopes that they're being pursued, that's not my work to do, that God is a God who rewrites our stories and he gives us new names and he gives us new seasons. And sometimes that's only made true in eternity.
Yeah.
And that it's not mine, to even see that occur or to facilitate that happening. But that like to be a love, because so many times, so many of the people that lack dignity and have not been dignified by society, by the church, they can't even hope.
Yeah.
They can't hope.
Yeah.
And so to love them in a way with a love that hopes, that even if it's not on this earth, that they be brought to wholeness, that's possible.
And that right there is what frustrates me so much. You said this isn't a political thing. You said it in that when you were.
Well, I didn't want people's ears to go close.
Everybody thought politically in that you can't in our environment.
No,
what made that story so shocking is because of our like I grew up in Imperial Beach, California, where I was literally less than a mile away from the Tijuana border.
Yeah.
We would have illegal immigrants use our backyard hose to shower off from crawling through the sloughs to get into America. So that was. And back then, it was no big deal. That was normal.
Right.
That was just a normal part of thing. Now, today, I'd imagine it's a much different stigma, that's going through that. But the tactic of politics of this being right is a dehumanizing the other side.
Yes.
You're not just broken. You're evil and wicked, and God wants to destroy you.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter which side you're on. It doesn't matter right or left. It's that same side. And I'm like, man, doing the work that I've done, I've sat with pedophiles. Mm-hmm. I've sat with murderers. Mm-hmm. I've sat with adulterers. I've sat with, I've sat with all kinds of people who have a stained record, and there's so much more to them than that.
Exactly.
Like so much more to them than those things. Yep. And we, I think the church should be the place where we really believe more than anything in the world that anyone could be saved and changed.
That's right.
Like,
hope. Even me.
Even if they can't believe it for themselves.
Right. And I think that's part of the dignity piece. Yeah. Is like, that not being the only thing about them, but also like standing in that gap for them and just saying like, I see your value. I see the beauty of who you were created with intention to be. And even if, we have some version of that as, we've been broken down by life, I love that.
Yeah.
I love you. And I've lately been doing a little experiment where I make eye contact with people who hold signs on the street.
Yeah.
And just look at them.
How's that going for you?
And just look at they go, and then you're like excited.
I'm just going to stare at you.
I got no cash. I'm just trying to see you. But like literally.
Dang it.
They're like.
I'd be so mad at you if I was
frustrating
homeless.
People
I would be like,
right.
I hate that woman right there.
No, but like so often, like we just forget that they're this beautiful creation. And
they're, even if they never change.
Right.
Like, even if they never change, there's still someone to be loved and cared for and believed in and hoped in, that's probably the thing that frustrates me the most around the social and political climate that we have right now in the church. Mm-hmm. Is the very core of the gospel message is diminished because of this cultural moment, this reality.
Yep.
That's good.
Sorry, that's my rant. That's my soapbox.
Well,
Tina asked me if she should use that thing hypothetical situation, and I said, "Heck yes,
yeah, you should."
So did Chris, and I was like, "Yeah, you're not standing up here, bro." No, it was great. I think it was a good example of what's in our hearts.
Yeah, totally,
absolutely. Yeah. No, it's so good. All right, how in the world do we do this IRL?
#IRL. And if you don't know what that means, you must be old.
In real life.
Give me the 3 steps give me the 3 happy hops.
Yeah.
The happy hops to holiness,
I know,
Tina. Give me the 3 happy hops.
It's not about the happy hops to holiness. Sorry.
I got one. Share your table with someone that's not like you. Mm-hmm. Share legitimately. If you just started, if we could just convince people to invite people into their lives who don't think like them, don't believe like them, don't look like them, I think we start to get to the point where we can see past the cultural stigmas and start to learn people. So be curious about people, and I think we do that. And everyone says, oh yeah, do it. But people very rarely like intentionally do that.
Right.
And I just encourage you, if you have a dinner table, you eat dinner, you run into people that don't think like you or don't like you, just invite them over.
They do eat dinner.
They'll eat dinner probably. No one can live without eating.
Right. Well, and I was thinking, I was like, okay, some people are going to say, I can't do that. That's too big a step for me. And I just go, okay, like, let's just say we accept the premise. Not that we agree with you, but we accept the premise that that's too big a step with you. What if you actually just talk to someone who looks different than you, who thinks different than you? If you're not ready to invite them over, if that seems like such a huge leap to invite someone different from you in your home, what if you see them and you have a conversation with them, try to understand them, try to get to know them?
Tell me your story.
Yeah.
Or you can just stare them down like Tina does.
Yeah, and not give them any money.
Not give them any money.
With a big smile and intense eye contact.
Hi, I see you.
I love you with the love of Jesus.
And
but
they're
I have
like,
no money.
I know. And then they're disseeking.
I love
It's
that.
a great strategy, you guys. This is why I don't give
It
3-point steps. No, my thing would be seek out opportunities to learn from people that aren't like you.
Yeah.
So if that means like literally seeking out language classes from somebody, I mean, go and do a 4-week language class. Do not aim to give something to them.
Yeah.
Receive from them.
Just receive.
If you have a person in your life that is different from you and they love to sew and you don't know how to sew, humble yourself, even if you don't care about sewing. But if you're seeking to connect with somebody who's not like you, see what they do well and ask them to teach you.
That's good.
And flip the dynamic.
I love that.
And it creates just this really fun, like low tension way where they are experiencing dignity and you are connecting to their humanity and their awesomeness.
Give me a drink of water.
Give me a drink of water. And that's so connective. And it's fun. It's really fun. You know, if there's an older man who's amazing at pickleball and he is on the complete opposite side of the political spectrum than you are, grab a pickleball paddle or tennis.
David, will you teach me pickleball?
And he's old. You just
I'm
called David
old
old.
and on the opposite side of the political spectrum than he is.
But it's something that simple, like somebody that you would not sit down and have a cup of coffee with. Like let them teach you something.
It's amazing.
Spend time with them in a way that flips that power dynamic. If there's a teenager in your life that is gender fluid and that makes you uncomfortable, ask them to teach you to paint if they like to paint. Like you don't have to talk about their gender identity.
Right.
Just be with them and allow them to teach you something.
It's really good. Yeah. Thank you.
Beautiful.
And thank you. You made it all the way through.
Man,
good job. Yeah. We had a lot to say.
Yeah, we did.
And we're grateful to Tina.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
for
Tina.
just bringing such thoughtfulness to the conversation and openness to some of the harder nuances of church life and gender and all of those things. And we're just grateful to you.
Thanks.
And thanks for being a part of it.
Thanks for partnering with me in this.
Yeah. Well, hey, what next week? What do we got going on?
What's next week?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you.
Oh, next week. We're in the walk. Yeah, we're going to continue. It's going to be boring me again.
Boring old David.
Boring old David.
He's
we're
teach
actually
me pickleball.
We're actually walking with Jesus on the Emmaus Road, where we're going to talk about how Jesus loves to enter into the ordinary things of life and how oftentimes we're looking for Jesus in the spectacular instead of learning to walk with him in the ordinary.
Awesome. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for sticking with us. Catch us next week. Same time, same place, which is whatever time you want to listen. Yeah. It's great.
Except on Tuesday.
Well, you can listen.
Has to be Wednesday.
After the Tuesday after.
Yeah, you can do the Tuesday.
People do. Not everyone is like right on Wednesday. But we love the ones who are.
Yes, we do.
No, I'm just kidding. We love you all. Hey, thanks so much. Have a great week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Centered. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend. You can listen to Centered on your favorite podcast platform or watch on YouTube. To learn more about Mosaic or connect further, visit us online at welcometomosaic.com. See you next week.